education is about equity. It is about providing access. And if we say we're about building up communities and improving society, then we will invest in education and we will invest in our children and we will bring them back safe and we will open the school doors to everyone.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back to this edition of Leading Through Unprecedented Times. I'm Tom Murray, your host, and I am so excited for this episode to have my new good friend, Dr. Maria Martinez-Poulin, Superintendent in Whittier, California, in Southern California. Maria, how are you? Thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to share our story from Whittier City School District.
Absolutely. So tell us a little about, for listeners, we know you're in Southern California. Tell us a little bit about the district, the demographics, who you serve, where you are, and that kind of thing.
Okay, excellent. So we actually have grades TK through 8th grade. We're about 6,000 students. We have many specialized programs, dual immersion, Spanish, and we have technology specialized programs, STEAM programs as well. Many of our families are very excited about what we do. And we have schools that have award-winning programs at the elementary, and now we're nurturing them at the middle school so that they get that articulation, and our kids who are developing biliteracy skills at the elementary can develop them at the middle school as well. So we're happy that our kids will be fully literate in Spanish and English in our district.
That's absolutely incredible. And I have to say, just connecting recently, your passion, your love for your community, for your kids radiates in all you do. And I think so much of it relates to your personal journey, your personal story. Tell us, if you would, kind of your personal journey, your personal story, and where that passion, that positivity, and that just love for what you do, where it comes from.
Thank you for that opportunity. So our district is made up of pretty much 90% Latino. We're 20% English language learners, about 68% that qualify for free and reduced lunch. And when I think about my own personal experience, I'm similar to the community demographics. I was born in Mexico, moved here when I was 5. I was raised in a single family household, learned English as a second language. And I remember the summer that we moved here was the summer that Elvis Presley passed away. And so that marked a important, significant cultural time for us because we started to learn a little bit about American culture. We started to learn the language. We started to learn a lot about where we were going to grow up, but it also shaped our interest in school, and it helped my mom to say, you can do so much with public education. And at the time she would say, you might grow up to be a bilingual secretary. And I just remember that was her goal for us, that we could be bilingual secretaries. And so growing up in Downey, California, and I love Downey schools, kindergarten through 12th grade. We took summer school enrichment, learned to type, learned keyboarding. I do not type well. I do not type well because my mother said you might be a secretary. I wanted to read. I wanted to be a science major. I wanted to be an English major. And luckily, I had that opportunity to go on to become a major in English and literature specifically, and to get a master's, to get a doctorate at USC. But it was not an easy journey. And for me, it was difficult because we didn't have the funds for a college education. We didn't have the experience of this is how you navigate it. But we did have the support of great teachers. We did have the support of great people in the community who said, here in America, in California, we have community colleges, so you don't have to go to a 4-year school. You get the benefit of the support at a community college. And so I was able to do that and paid my way through college. I actually also got married when I was 18. And so we had our first child at 19. And it was difficult, but I remember starting a freshman experience in college and having a child and being married. My job was a classroom instructional assistant. So I was a paraprofessional in education, and that started my journey and what has become 30 years in public education. It is the best job I have ever had. I choose to do nothing else with my life but to be a part of education, to be a part of the public school system. And as difficult as it has been in the last couple of months, it is because of the people in public education that I feel supported, that I feel that we add value to the community. And I see just the best of humanity in our classified, in our teachers, in our management. And I think of my mom, and my mom said, you will find opportunity in public education. And I want that for my students too. I want them to have all of the opportunities that were made available to me. And I want the families to also have those great opportunities. And I want them to feel that love and that sense of positive energy with them when they come to our schools and when they leave us, so that they can say, I can do that. I could be that. I could be a teacher. I could be superintendent. I could be a doctor. I want that for them. And so I'm just delighted with what we do here in Whittier City School District.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that and vulnerably sharing part of your own journey and your own story. And, to hear there you are as a superintendent, and we get to work with superintendents all across the country. And let's face it, in the past 13 months or so, it's been a challenge. And to hear you bring that passion, that energy, after you probably haven't slept much this week, you probably put in X amount of hours far and above whatever contract you might have, because that's who you are. And to bring that positivity, to bring that energy just really speaks to it. And it really radiates in all that you do. But let's go back to the beginning of the pandemic. And here, we started this podcast a couple weeks into the pandemic to spotlight folks like you, just in terms of how they were going to be leading. So let's go back to March. We all talk about that March 13th, that infamous day. People can talk about where they were, the email they had to send, how they had to reach out to their community, and all those pieces. Let's go back to that point in time. Tell us where you were as a district in the beginning of the pandemic, as all the fear and all the anxiety throughout the world started to kick in, and what was really on your plate. Rewind a little bit, if you could, to that point last March and what you started to deal with in the middle of in the beginning of the pandemic.
So going back to that week, I remember we had a board meeting on Tuesday, and I had shared with the community that if we were going to close, we would tell them and give them a good amount of time. And so there we were on Tuesday. I'm telling them, we will give you plenty of notice. Don't worry. There's nothing to be afraid of. And on Wednesday, I went to visit Sorensen Science Academy, and I said, I will give you plenty of notice. I'm here to visit schools. Don't worry. We have time. That's Wednesday. And on Thursday, the County Office of Education in Los Angeles said, you need to prepare. You might have to shut down tomorrow. And so we gathered our TOSAs, we gathered our principals, and we said, we may have to close. It may be tomorrow. And so we had to pull the school board and have a special board meeting to say, we're going to close. It could be 10 days. It could be 3 weeks. We were getting ready for spring break, and we made a decision to close and to allow our families to go on spring break and then come back into distance learning. And at the time, we thought it would be about 10 days, about 3 weeks. We started printing packets. So there we were that night, printing packets across the district on all the copy machines. We were burning down copy machines across the district. They would shut down. We went to another department. We went to another school. And it was 7:00 at night. They were still printing. And we were assessing our technology needs. And I just want to share that Whittier City School District has an amazing community that they have always supported our needs by supporting our bonds. And so in 2012, they had supported a bond initiative to allow us to move into new Apple devices, a 1 to 2 device across the district. And but that was in 2012 when we bought those devices, when we installed Apple TVs across the district, when we bought, again, all that new technology. It just wasn't working to its best. And so as we were thinking about remote learning and distance learning, we knew we needed to invest in new devices as well. And so we started looking into new software, the cost of updating our devices across the district, and thinking, will the government send money? And they said, we will. And we said, but when? Because we need millions of dollars today. And at the time, we didn't even know, would we keep our funding? What was going to happen? And so there were so many unknowns. But what was clear, our intention, our focus was clear, that we would look after our people, that we would make flexibility and grace the first thing on our list, that we would say, you take care of family, you take care of your personal needs, and then we look at rigor, relationships first. And so we immediately initiated grab and go lunches. We sent out devices to our little kids, because we had a system in place for middle school, but the little kids didn't take their devices home. And so we wanted to do that. And then we started ordering devices, millions of dollars worth of devices, and just working with our teachers to ask, what do you need and how do we better serve you? And then allowing our TOSAs to work with the teachers. And for me, I am a superintendent that says, you tell me what you need and I will get out of the way, because I firmly believe the teachers tell us, classified tells us, principals tell us, parents tell us, and they said, we need technology support. We need people at the school to help us access the devices, to help us with connectivity. We need Wi-Fi. And that was the other thing. When we have 68% of our families that qualify for free and reduced lunch, they don't often have broadband at home. And so we had to quickly make Wi-Fi connectivity available to our families in addition to those devices. We had to make sure that our teachers had support at home, that we could say, stay home, teach from your home. And that was also something that we needed to work through, because what does that look like? We've always taught from our classrooms. And so we wanted to make sure that they were well taken care of. Family first, and then we look at work. Relationships first, then we look at rigor. And so we made social emotional supports a priority. We established the lessons of second step at 8 o'clock for all of our students across the district. And we also purchased supports for our staff. So if they needed to reach out, they can go to a confidential support system and get that support, because we wanted them to be okay. And we wanted them to feel that support. And everything was changing. And so as soon as I would say, we're moving in this direction, the state would say, no, you're moving in this other direction. And the county would say, actually, we're moving up. So no, you're not going to go left or right. We're moving over here. And we knew we also needed to develop new systems of communication. So we started a newsletter, a weekly superintendent newsletter. We started superintendent chats with classified, with certificated, and we really had to work on communication so that we could share what we knew. And oftentimes it was, we don't know, but when we get more information, we will share it with you. And so I just want to share that, had it not been for a great staff, great families, great students who said, we're going to tell you what we need, and then we're going to ask you to work on it, I don't know where I would have been as a superintendent, because I needed that honesty. I needed the team to work together. Our hashtag is better together, because we really needed to stand, even though we're apart, we needed to stand together to say, we can do this. We can take care of each other while we're apart.
Wow, incredible words there. And I'm just processing so many of the nuggets that you just shared, the focus on relationships. And we think back to last March, it was all of a sudden like we reprioritized a lot of the things of, like you mentioned, making sure that our kiddos were fed, making sure the SEL sides of things in place, the human pieces of the work there. And kudos for that. At Future Ready Schools, we did a lot of work. We do a lot of work around equity. And last summer, we did the first state-by-state breakdown when it comes down to students that didn't have access. Disproportionately, it was our Black and brown students that didn't have access. We're about 16.9 million students across the country. And as you're sharing sharing from the district level perspective how very real that issue was. I know that equity and access are just such passions of yours, apart from you sharing your own journey and you needed that access to public education, to those pieces. Talk to us, if you would, about kind of that journey around equity and access, some of your core beliefs there. We've talked a little bit about the connectivity side, but how else that plays out in the work that you lead.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I think that one thing that's important to this district is that they have a history of developing signature practices. And so they're very big on the arts, academics, making sure that dual language immersion is something that's available to everyone that's interested in that it's not just available to one part of town, but anyone who wants to be a part of that dual immersion can have that opportunity, but that visual, performing arts, engineering is available to everyone across the district. And we had to figure out how we could do that in distance learning. And so we have amazing teachers, and we have, I just want to highlight, we have one teacher, Miss Mandy Fay. She actually said, I will teach the elementary classes through Zoom. And she has 300 students, and she teaches rhythm. She teaches singing. She is amazing. 300 students on Zoom. Before the pandemic, nobody knew Zoom. Like, who was talking about Zoom? And yet Miss Mandy Fay, the amazing Mandy Fay, was teaching music to elementary school students 300 at a time. At our middle school, we got together and said, we want to make sure that as we teach art, that children have the acrylics, that they have the canvas, that they have everything they need as part of a well-rounded program. And so the school said, we will set up drive-through systems so that the families can drive through and pick up all the supplies they need. So we have another teacher, Michelle Vincent, who does that every couple of weeks. She just sets up these systems, and families pick up the acrylics, the canvas, everything they need. She teaches the lessons, then records videos to highlight their amazing work. Our teachers do that. They do that at the elementary, they do that at the secondary, and then our classified come in and they stand out there and they hand it out to the families, to the children. They greet them by name. They know each other because they're all a part of the family. They're all committed to each other. But the commitment is so deep to say, if we're going to say we teach art, we're going to give you the materials. If we say we're going to teach this novel, we are going to say, come by, pick up the novel. And with food, we did the same thing. We said, we want to make sure our kids have breakfast, that they have lunch and supper. And because we know that we get hungry on the weekend too. So we also provide weekend meals. They pick it up on Friday and they get enough for the whole weekend. And then we see them on Monday. And so our families come by and they see classified, greet them at the pickup. No other district does that. We have that level of commitment by our staff because they see themselves as part of the community. They see themselves as part of the educational process, and they want to make sure that kids feel nurtured and loved. And so equity, I think, means more than saying I have a book, more than saying I have Wi-Fi. Equity means that you know that the people who are teaching you, that the people who are serving you care about you. And I see that here in Whittier. I see that in our staff, and I'm just honored to be a part of it and to serve alongside with them.
Yeah, this work is all about the people, and just I can see you light up as you talk about your people. So here's my follow-up question. How is the superintendent, how is a leadership team, have you worked to support your people, whether it's the professional learning side, whether it's their own self-care side? What have you all done throughout the past year, throughout the pandemic, to support your people? Because obviously everything you talk about is very human focused. So I know it's something that you've done. Talk to us about what that's looked like.
It's the people first, right? We're in the service of people. We don't create widgets, we develop our people, and happy people, happy adults help with happy students. And so when the staff said, we would like flexibility to go home at noon so that we can take care of our family, take care of our personal needs, and then continue to teach at 1. And classified said, we would like that same flexibility. I was all for it. I said, of course, before the pandemic, we would never have considered teaching from home. We would never have considered delivering services from home like that. But now I see that there is an option, and I see that there is value, especially for women. I'm gonna go ahead and say that. I'm gonna commit to that. When we have staff members who are also raising children, and oftentimes the responsibility of creating lunch, helping with homework, taking care of chores in the home falls disproportionately on women. Not always, not always. I can't say that, but oftentimes it happens to fall on women. I knew it was important for our families, and many of our staff members happen to be women in education and elementary. We just have a higher percentage of our staff that are women. I wanted to make sure that they had those resources available to them, so that if they were taking care of their children, taking care of their family, if they had sick family, that they had the option to be at home and then Zoom in to take care of the services for students, to take care of a meeting that they had to attend. But to me, it was very important that one, they did not feel that they had to step out of the profession, that they did not feel that they had to step out of their career, that they had options. And so for us, we have worked with our labor partners to say, how do we do that? And when we were in Los Angeles in Deep Purple in December, and we needed them to stay home, I just want to say how grateful I was working with our labor partners when I said to them, there's a lot of illness in the community. I need them to deliver services from home. Can you help me with that? And they said, we will help you. And they did. They went home and they made phone calls from home to our kids. They went home and they delivered lessons from home. They went home and delivered speech lessons from home. I have to say they are heroes. They are heroes. And I think it's because we develop our people, we take care of them, and our ask was, how can we help you so that you can help our families? And I have always said, I want to extend flexibility and grace to staff so they can pay it forward to students. Because as adults, we have strategies, we have coping strategies. Kids don't. They haven't developed them yet. And I wanted our staff to pay it forward to our kids so that our students could develop those strategies, the coping strategies, so that they could cope with what's happening. Because I'm sorry, I'm going to get all emotional, because a lot of our students are being raised by grandparents, or a lot of our students are dropped off at school by grandparents. And the pandemic has disproportionately affected grandparents. And so when you think about who has passed away, it's our grandparents. And so our kids have lost grandparents. And when we think about coming back in the new normal, that's something to consider. That is a big, big, big consideration for us, because many of our families have lost a grandparent, have lost extended family members who lived with them. And there's that loss, there's that grief that needs to be addressed. And our staff has stepped up to it. Our staff is there to support them. And our demographics, because of the Latino population, again, disproportionately impacted by the pandemic. I see a huge need for us to continue to work on meeting their social emotional needs, and for us to spend 6 weeks on restorative practices so that we can say, we're here for you. We're here for you, the person. And then we will work on the rigor of standards, and then we will work on everything else. But it's about the people. And I want to make sure that our staff knows that I care about them as individuals, and that kids know that I care about them as individuals. And so as they're coming back to our campuses, I have been out there to see them. and along with their parents, I'm out there teary-eyed too. And when they're taking pictures, I'm like, please let me take a picture of you taking a picture of your child, because it's the most adorable thing I have seen in the last 14 months. And it's what we do in our leadership. It's what I do as superintendent to make sure that we take care of their needs as people, so that they feel confident, so that they feel strong and supported, to be creative, to take risk, to take academic risk, and that they feel safe at our campuses, and that they feel that they can come back to us. Behind me, I have that Wonder Woman painting. I have that picture of the two dogs created by middle school students for me. That's my heart. I love that. I love that they're creating art, that they are inspired. When there are some days on the weekends that I am wearing my pajamas till 2 p.m. and yet our students are creating art, and I am just inspired by that. And I'm sorry, I lost track of your question. But
No, Maria, I'm listening to you, and you're tapping emotion in me as well. And just a couple reflections I have. First of all, as a dad myself, the ultimate compliment I can give and to any educator is, and I really mean this, I would put my babies under your leadership in a heartbeat. And simply because the passion that you have, the people-focused mindset that you have, and how easy it is in education to get away from all that, yet you exude that in every single response and every aspect of your leadership. The second piece, I want to say thank you for calling out, as we look at the pandemic, how it's disproportionately impacted our females across the country, those that are parents or moms that are trying to do it all in so many different ways, or our older generations, our grandparents. Thank you for calling out the trauma and all the other things that are so very real for our students and our families. Quite often, we look at this through our lens, how it's impacted me as a teacher, how I have to teach differently, and how I have to do, which is very real. But it's also very real for every student that logs onto that Zoom, every student that shows up, the impact in their families. And thank you for being real and transparent and vulnerable and calling all those pieces out. So I know as a superintendent, your calendar's crazy. So I only have a couple more questions for you here real quick. Want you to process moving forward. It's obvious you're such a human-focused culture, and I have no doubt your students are going to have amazing success moving forward because of your team's leadership, with you leading the way and navigating as well. What's your biggest hope moving forward as we kind of look towards next year? Where's some hopeful signs with vaccines, the pandemic? Not really sure where things are going to go, but as the superintendent, what are your highest hopes moving forward?
My highest hopes for students, for staff, for the community is that they will feel confident, that coming back to school will be a place of creativity, a place of learning, and that they're excited about it. And that's what I want for all of our kids. I want them to see school as a place of excitement, and that learning represents opportunity, it represents fun, that the challenge of conquering science, conquering, the gift of learning to read when you can decipher sounds and connecting, decoding reading at kindergarten, at TK. I want that for our kids. I want them to get excited about it. And I want our families to look at our surveys when we start asking, are you coming back? I want them to say, of course I'm coming back. And I want our staff to say, we're ready, and to feel confident in that. And so I really, I pray for it, I plan for it, and I lobby for it. And I want you to know that I do work on that. And I make it a point to say education is about equity. It is about providing access. And if we say we're about building up communities and improving society, then we will invest in education, and we will invest in our children, and we will bring them back safe, and we will open the school doors to everyone.
Absolutely. Love that. So final question for you. Now I want you to speak to your superintendent colleagues, your principal colleagues, your teacher colleagues all across America that'll be listening to your podcast. I want you to process for them, what's one piece of advice, no matter where they are, no matter where they find themselves, leading in a classroom, leading a building, leading a school district, as we continue navigating these uncertain times, what's one piece of advice you have?
I would say to them, be bold. Be bold and be vulnerable with people. Do not be afraid to share your story, to share your struggle, but be bold in making requests and in asking people to do things. Go for it.
Incredible words of wisdom. That's Dr. Maria Martinez-Poulin, everybody. Maria, thank you so much for being here today, my friend.
Thank you.